The Canterbury Tales is a famous book written by Geoffrey Chaucer a long time ago, in the 14th century. It is about a group of people who go on a trip together. These people are called pilgrims. They are traveling to a place called Canterbury, Cathedral, which is a very holy place in England. Each pilgrim tells a story during the journey. Some stories are funny, some are serious, and some teach lessons about life. Through these stories, we learn about the different kinds of people who lived in medieval England, rich and poor, clever and foolish, kind and selfish. Now, let's begin the story. In a land far away, there was a group of travelers. They were not just any travelers, they were pilgrims. Pilgrims are people who travel to holy places for religious reasons. These pilgrims were going to Canterbury Cathedral, a special church, where they hoped to pray and feel closer to God. Before they started their journey, they met at an inn. An inn is like a hotel where travelers can eat, sleep, and rest. This inn was called the Tabard Inn, and it was in the city of London. The owner of the inn was a friendly man named Harry Bailey. He liked to talk to his guests and make them feel welcome. One evening, as the pilgrims sat around a big table eating dinner, Harry Bailey had an idea. "Friends," he said, "you are all going to Canterbury. It is a long journey, and the road may be boring. Why don't we make it more fun? Let each of you tell 2 stories on the way to Canterbury and 2 more on the way back. Whoever tells the best story will win a free dinner when we return." The pilgrims liked this idea. They clapped and cheered. They were excited to share their stories. Early the next morning, they left the inn and began their journey. As they traveled, they took turns telling their tales. Each story was different, but all of them taught something about life. The first person to tell a story was the knight. He was a nobleman, a brave and honorable man who had fought in many battles. His clothes were simple, and he spoke kindly to everyone. When it was his turn, he began a tale of love, rivalry, and destiny. His story was about 2 knights named Palamon and Arcite. They were cousins and best friends. One day, they were captured in a battle and put in prison. From their cell, they could see a beautiful woman named Emily. Both men fell in love with her at first sight. But since they were in prison, they could not go to her. After many years, the 2 knights were released. They promised to fight for Emily's love. Each wanted to marry her, but only one could win her hand. They decided to have a big tournament, a contest where knights fight with swords and shields. On the day of the tournament, many people came to watch. The 2 knights fought bravely, but in the end, Arcite won. However, just as Arcite was declared the winner, his horse tripped, and he fell off. He was badly hurt and died soon after. Before he died, Arcite told Emily to marry Palamon because he was a good man. In the end, Palamon and Emily got married, and they lived happily ever after. The pilgrims enjoyed the knight's story. It was full of adventure, honor, and love. They clapped and cheered when he finished. "What a noble tale," they said. "It teaches us about bravery and sacrifice." Next, it was the miller's turn to tell a story. The miller was a big, strong man with red hair and a loud laugh. He was known for being a bit wild and always ready to make people laugh. His story was very different from the knight's. It was funny and a little naughty. The miller's story was about a carpenter named John, his young wife Allison, and a clever scholar named Nicholas. Nicholas was very smart and loved to study the stars. One day he told the carpenter that a great flood was coming, like the one in the Bible. He convinced the carpenter to hang 3 large tubs from the roof so they could float when the water came. That night Nicholas and Allison tricked the carpenter into sleeping in one of the tubs. While the carpenter was stuck up high, Nicholas and Allison spent the night together. When the carpenter realized he had been tricked, he was very angry, but everyone else laughed at him. The pilgrims roared with laughter at the miller's story. It was silly and full of jokes, and it showed how clever people could be, even if they weren't always honest. "What a funny tale," they said. "It makes us laugh and think at the same time." After the miller, it was the wife of Bath's turn. She was a bold and confident woman who had been married 5 times. She loved to talk about love, marriage, and life. Her story was about a knight who made a big mistake. One day, the knight saw a young woman in the forest and decided to force her to kiss him. The woman was upset, and the king wanted to punish the knight. But the queen gave him a chance to save himself. She told him he had 1 year to answer a question. What do women want most in life? The knight traveled far and wide, asking every woman he met. Some said money, others said beauty, and some said power. But no one gave him the right answer. Finally, he met an old woman who promised to help him if he agreed to do whatever she asked. Desperate, the knight agreed. The old woman told him the answer. Women want to have control over their own lives. The queen was pleased, and the knight was spared. But then the old woman demanded that he marry her. The knight was unhappy because she was old and ugly, but he kept his promise. On their wedding night, the old woman gave the knight a choice. She could stay old and ugly but be a good wife, or she could become young and beautiful but might not be faithful. The knight let her choose, and she became both young and faithful. They lived happily ever after. The pilgrims thought the wife of Bath's story was clever and funny. It taught them that respect and kindness are important in relationships. "What a wise tale," they said. "It shows us how to treat others with care." As the pilgrims continued their journey, more people told stories. Each story was unique and reflected the personality of the storyteller. The reeve was a carpenter, and he did. Not like the miller's story, because it made fun of carpenters. So he decided to tell a story about a miller who cheated people. In his tale, 2 students went to a miller's house to get their grain ground. The miller tried to steal some of their grain, but the students tricked him in return. The Reeve's story was funny and showed how clever people could be when they were treated unfairly. The Pardoner was a man who sold forgiveness for sins. His story was dark and serious. It was about 3 young men who wanted to kill Death. They heard that Death was hiding under a tree, so they went to find him. Under the tree, they found a pile of gold instead. Greed took over, and they ended up killing each other. The Pardoner's story taught a lesson about the dangers of greed and selfishness. The nun's priest told a story about a proud rooster named Chanticleer. Chanticleer was the best singer in the barnyard, and he was very proud of his voice. One day, a fox tricked him by flattering him. Chanticleer was caught, but he used his wits to escape. The nun's priest's story was funny and showed how pride can lead to trouble. Finally, after many days of traveling, the pilgrims reached Canterbury Cathedral. They prayed and thanked God for keeping them safe on their journey. Then they began the trip back to London. On the way home, they told more stories, laughing and learning from one another. When they returned to the Tabard Inn, Harry Bailey announced the winner of the storytelling contest. Everyone agreed that the knight had told the best story because it was noble and full of wisdom. The pilgrims said goodbye to one another, promising to meet again someday. Though their journey had ended, their stories lived on, teaching people about life in medieval England. The Canterbury Tales is important because it shows us what life was like in the Middle Ages. Through the stories, we learn about the different kinds of people who lived then, the rich and the poor, the kind and the selfish, the clever and the foolish. Chaucer's tales remind us that people have always been the same in many ways. We all want love, happiness, and understanding. Even today, hundreds of years later, the Canterbury Tales continues to inspire people. It teaches us to listen to others, to laugh at ourselves, and to find meaning in the stories we tell. Through these tales, the voices of the past still speak to us, reminding us of our shared humanity.